Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour. We've just spent the last 45 minutes talking about the Trump tariffs and what Canada needs to do. And I think that we have got to have a really serious conversation as Canadians and as Canada about this. And I think we are starting to, but we haven't enough. I think there are six issues that we need to address. Uh, First of all, I think we need to call out Donald Trump for the mistakes that he's making, the lies that he's telling, the inaccuracy in his numbers. A couple of things. Fentanyl. What is it? 0.00001% of the fentanyl going into the United States is coming from Canada. The biggest problem in fentanyl is demand in the United States. The Americans need to look at themselves before they start thinking about the problems that are coming from Canada in regards to fentanyl. Even though, no question, fentanyl is a terrible issue in Canada and the United States, but Canada is not the source of your problems, Mr. President. Number two, migrants. The U.S. has a migrant problem. They've been trying to address this for decades. It's not Canada's fault. And frankly, the biggest issue that I think is going to be faced by Canada next year is as the U.S. starts to have these um, deportation camps set up, migrants are going to be coming, I worry, from the United States to Canada. And we're going to have to patrol our borders to make sure that they stay in the United States. It's not going to be north to south that we're going to have to worry about. It's going to be south to north. And his numbers on a trade deficit are just wrong. There's no $200 billion subsidy going to Canada because of trade deficits. Number one, if you take out energy, it's a trade surplus that the U.S. enjoys. Number two, he doesn't include services in that analysis. And if you did, Canada would be running a trade deficit. And on energy, the U.S. benefits from being able to buy Canadian energy at less than market prices. They also enjoy Canadian energy that they can either consume and ship their energy worldwide at market prices, or frankly, they take some of our energy and refine it and sell it back to us or sell it externally. So we've got to do a better job with energy, and we've got to do a better job in telling Americans and the president when he's wrong, and he is wrong. Number two, retaliatory tariffs. I think that the prime minister and the premiers are completely right in having a unified Team Canada approach with retaliatory tariffs. I think that Trump is a bully. He only respects people that stand up to him strong. And I think we need to stand up to him strong with retaliatory tariffs. And we're doing that, and we need to do it. I do think that energy needs to be tariffed at the exact same amount as the rest of our goods. There's no reason why one industry, one province should have a different, less negative impact on it. We need to share the pain equally. Number three, I think that all of the moves that people individually are making and the local liquor control boards are making to buy Canadian is the right strategy. This needs to be something that all of us are willing to make changes in our life. I think people canceling their trips, their holidays to the United States. I think people traveling in Canada for their holidays. Anything we can do to support Canadian businesses, Canadian jobs makes sense. I think number four, we haven't talked about this, but I think that there are too many Americans that are buying up Canadian businesses, Canadian resources, Canadian critical minerals. And we need to be thinking about our restrictions on foreign direct investment, maybe taxing them, doing things that we need to do to ensure that Canada and Canadians stay in control of those critical resources that we've got. Number five, I do think there are some things that we have done wrong and we need to quickly address. I do think that we need to spend more on defense, and I think we need to go right immediately to the 2% of GDP. I think that, frankly, there is a risk that I'm going to come to in number six, that some of the risk comes from the United States. I think Arctic sovereignty is an issue. I think our support for Ukraine is an issue. I think that the lack of investment and modernization of our Canadian military is a mistake. We've talked about jets, we've talked about frigates, we've talked about submarines, we talked about NORAD. I think we need to go to 2% GDP spending on military right now. It should be announced this week. And then number six, and the most important one, which is something that people haven't talked a lot about because I don't think people want to actually believe this is at all possible because it's such a ludicrous idea. But I think that Donald Trump needs to be listened to more. I think that too often the Democratic Party, even Republicans, a lot of Americans, and clearly the rest of the world, listen to Donald Trump and say, it's off the wall. He's nuts. He's never going to do it. In fact, I've heard people talk about it just this weekend that, oh no, he's not actually going to put these tariffs on board. And then Friday he announces that, and then after he announces that he's going to put them in place, well, he's delayed it till Tuesday because he's going to change his mind between Monday and Tuesday. He's been talking about tariffs since 1987. A couple of weeks ago, he said that there was an artificial arbitrary border between Canada and the United States that needed to be erased. He's belittled Canada and Canadians and our prime minister by saying that we're the 51st state, that our prime minister is the governor of the 51st state. He's talked about manifest destiny. He's talked about taking over Greenland. He's talked about taking over Panama. He's changed arbitrarily the name of the Gulf of Mexico. He's talked about erasing the border between Canada and the United States. It is ludicrous. It's dumb. It's crazy. But he does a lot of the crazy things that he muses about. This is an attack on our sovereignty. On Saturday night, a trade war was announced by the President of the United States against Canada, Mexico, and China, but Canada more than anywhere. It is going to devastate our economy, but it's also going to devastate the U.S. economy. It's going to create, I've seen estimates of between 2 and 4% increases in inflation in the United States. It should increase their gas prices on Wednesday in the United States. This is dumb. But what if his ultimate aim was annexation of Canada? He said he would use not military, but economic coercion against Canada. I don't think this is going to happen. I think it's ludicrous. I think it's the talk of someone who I just can't believe. But I haven't believed a lot of the other things that he said, and yet he's done them. Think about the way that people talked about the massing of the Russian troops on the Ukrainian border. Oh, he's never going to do it. He's never going to attack. It's not going to happen. And then when he did attack, well, it's going to be over in 5 days. I think we need to be very mindful of what Donald Trump is saying. And we need to be worried about what he is saying. And I'm not suggesting for a second that he's actually militarily attacked Canada or declared war, military war on Canada. But he has said that he wants to annex Canada. He has said that he wants to erase the arbitrary border between Canada and the United States. He has called us the 51st state. And we didn't believe he'd put in tariffs. And he did. Let's start worrying about what Donald Trump really is saying and what he's all about. And what that says to me is if there was ever a threat to Canada, this is it. If there was never a time to come together as Canadians, this is it. If there was ever a time to be Team Canada, this is it. If there was ever a time for us to call our American friends, neighbors, family members, and business associates and say, what the heck is going on? We're your best neighbor, your best friend, your best ally, your best trade partner. Why are you doing this to us? Now is the time. And if there was ever a time to stand strong, because if we know one thing about Donald Trump, it's this: if you show weakness, he'll want more. He'll want more, and he'll want more. We are not weak. We have to stand strong. We are under threat. We're under attack. It may not be military attack, but we are under economic attack, economic coercion. This is the biggest threat to Canada since the financial crisis in the 90s, since the global recession in 2008. But frankly, I think maybe even bigger than that. Maybe since before Confederation and the end of the Civil War, when there was a lot of movement to annex Western Canada by Americans. What did we do then? We created Canada. We invested in massive amounts of infrastructure by building a railway across Canada. We created an independent, sovereign country on the northern part of this continent. We started incredible economic ties with the rest of the world to to lessen our ties with the United States. I think we need to do the same. The Northern Gateway pipeline, a pipeline to the East Coast, getting rid of interprovincial trade barriers, tying our country together again like it hasn't been in a long time, are all the measures that we need to take to ensure that Donald Trump doesn't have his way with us. A couple thoughts from me as we end this amazing weekend. Saturday night, I went out for dinner and then to a show during the admissions. Everyone was checking their social media feeds. Everyone was talking. It was as if we were under attack, because we were and are under attack. Stand up for Canada. Good night, everybody.